In 2015, this is a story where it all started. In 2015 in Canada, Canadians and ministries went across Canada from coast to coast, from Victoria all the way to St. John's in Newfoundland.
Yep.
So from coast to coast. And what they were sharing was this story that many of us had never heard. But there was warehouses in the concentration camp in Auschwitz. And when the Jewish people came to the concentration camp off the trains, the Nazis would take all their wealth, all their belongings, and they would sort through them all. And they would put all their wealth into these warehouses. And these warehouses, the prisoners in Auschwitz called these warehouses Canada. And the reason for that was because the Polish people at the time had heard about this land of Canada and how wealthy and prosperous and beautiful it was. And because those warehouses were filled with the wealth of the Jewish people, and because it was unfortunately a good place to work, because most people didn't survive past 3 months in Auschwitz. But if you worked in those warehouses, you may have had the opportunity to steal something that you could barter for food. You know, it was a warmer place to work. And so it was the land of prosperity, where they could survive.
Wow.
So the prisoners called those warehouses Canada.
Canada. Wow.
Now, Canada had nothing to do with it, but our name was dragged into such a horrible thing where the wealth of the Jewish people were stolen. And so this story went across Canada in 2015, and believers attending these meetings that were called Loving God, Blessing Israel. This was the Loving God, Blessing Israel tour, basically saying, if you love God, you will align with His word and you will bless Israel. So when people heard this story of the Canada warehouses, people, instead of just putting money in the offering plate, they started taking off their wedding rings, their heirlooms, and putting that in the offering place, you know, to restore, to give back what was stolen as precious things from the Jewish people. So by the end of this tour across Canada, that we had a big mound of gold and silver. And so what to do with this? How do we give this back to the Jewish people? So they melted it all down and they made it into these rings. And these rings are called Ruth Rings because they say Ruth 1:16 in Hebrew on them. It says, your people shall be my people. Your God, my God. Amech ami ve'Elohech Elohai. When we came back this year from Israel, because we volunteered in Israel, Gavin and I, for 3 months to be a support to the Jewish people. You know, this is the time as Gentiles that we would actually act out what we've been saying. That we truly do honor and love the Jewish people, and we want to be a support to them and to do whatever we can. And then we came home, and not even a month later, we discovered miraculously that we still had some of these Ruth rings. These Ruth rings that from 2015 had been hidden in somebody's garage for 7 years from the time when they were supposed to have been given out. So in the fullness of time, God had rings that He wanted us to give to people at this appointed time. Because this is a very significant time for us as Gentiles to say, we are with you as Jewish people, like Ruth said to Naomi. And so since March of this year, we've had the privilege of giving rings to about 25 Jewish leaders in Canada and a few from Israel as well.
Wow. Powerful.